Seasons ever, the highest points per game since Michael Jordan in 86-87, including 9 50-point games, 9 of them, and that 32-game streak of 30-point games. He also recorded the second highest usage rate in history. Much on his shoulders, a tall order for the Jazz to try to stop him, and they've been up to the task in terms of slowing down the Rockets' offensive attack. In 4 games this season, Houston's had some of their worst offensive games against this excellent Utah Jazz defense. So, Brendan, how does this play out in the postseason?
I think it still plays out with Houston winning the series, but Utah is a team that can make the series very ugly because they do have a lot of rim presence. When you talk about Rudy Gobert and his ability to challenge shots at the rim. So if you're a defender, you know, hey, I can get into my man. And if I get beat, I have a great shot blocker like Gobert or Favors behind me, guys that can take that pressure off of me. And that makes things harder. And I think that Utah, we saw last year, they were very game in the playoff series against Houston last year. If not for a Spider Mitchell injury, we might have been looking at a 7-game series because he was taking that game over in Game 6. So it'll be very interesting to see how things play out. But I think Utah does present some problems as far as their defensive efforts.
Yeah, you know, Brendan, they have good perimeter defenders. They have good guys that are good athletes, good length. Rubio, you know, as a point guard, can guard and get into space. They like to force him to his right. Obviously, get on his left hand. Force him right. And as you say, you have those rim protectors. You have 2 big guys back there, Favors, Gobert. Gobert, obviously, his instincts are to come to help. And this collectively as a team, the ability to sort of, you know, close down the paint, but still then get back out to shooters and when you force them to pass. And so you're not going to stop him. You're not going to slow, you know, but you want to try to contain and slow him down, neutralize and shut everybody else down. And Utah, Quinn Snyder, got to give them credit. They've done a decent job throughout the regular season. Now in the postseason, you have even more time to lock in and focus and make adjustments as you go. You know, in the regular season, you got a day or 2 to prepare and move on to the next game. So it'll be interesting to see if they can, you know, be as good or if not better with their collective defensive effort against Harden. You
know, last year they also got, speaking of Houston, they got their best from Chris Paul, who was great against Utah, including 41 in the clincher. They're going to need that again?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. Look, Utah's a tough out. Nobody wants to see this team in the first round. This is not, and you think about through the years, I mean, just not that it matters now, but all the rivalries between these 2 teams in the playoffs and the great matches and great games. But Chris Paul is capable, been up and down with injuries, but this is the time of year where he's important. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if he can go out and get 40 again, but he must have an impact in this series for Houston to win.
Can't just be hard.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does have to have an impact, but the game has changed so much for Houston because when Chris Paul was out, they really started to use Harden in a usage rate that we haven't seen before in the league. So this series is going to be a lot different than it was last year because James Harden is playing at a different level than he was last year, and I think that impacts Chris Paul. They're going to need Chris Paul, but I'm not sure if he's going to have the same amount of freedom that he had last season. Last season, it was almost more of a 1A, 1B type situation. This year, Harden is 1A, B, and C, and then you have Chris Paul. And so I think Chris Paul still has to take advantage of his opportunities when he gets them, and he has to be aggressive. But I don't think that he's going to be needed quite as much just because they lean on Harden so much.
They split the regular season 2-2 for what that's worth, and Donovan Mitchell's playing as well as he has the entire
Spider Mitchell.
Remember how hot Utah was at the end of the season. They've been one of the best teams in the last few weeks.
Trevor Ariza's not there. And Trevor Ariza and Luke and Bob
Moute. Don't worry about it. Hey, sometimes, hey,
they did a good job on Mitchell last year, and they'll be missed in this series.
Absolutely.
Sure. All right, thanks, buddy.
What's his name again? Luke who?
Bob Moute.
Huh?
Bob Moute.
Luke Skywalker. Say what?
Playoff run today against the Blazers. What to expect in that series when we come back?
I am your father,
Bob.
Luke who?
Wednesday night, the Blazers seemingly did everything they could to lose to the Kings and avoid the matchup with OKC. But despite playing just 6 players and falling behind by 28, they somehow still managed to beat the Kings and starting today get at least 4 more chances at beating the Thunder for the first time this season. OKC swept all 4 in the regular season. Also,
I don't think Anthony Simmons got that message. Is Simons or
Simons?
Simons. I don't think Anthony Simons got that message. They weren't supposed to win that game.
No, he did not.
Yeah.
He played great. But here we are. They get OKC now. Portland, by the way, 1-12 over the last 3 postseasons. How much is that in the back of their minds?
Oh, I think it's definitely in the back of their minds. There is a lot of pressure on this Portland team, especially after last year. It wasn't the fact that they got beat. Anybody can get beat in the playoff series. It was the way they got beat. They were the 3 seed. They took on the Pelicans. They got punched in the mouth. They never responded, and they got swept. That's definitely Dame Lillard. We've heard him talk about that series, how much it hurt him. He said for about a month he didn't even want to watch basketball. So we know that's going to be in his mind. It's going to be in C.J. McCollum's mind. It's going to be in this team's mind. Coach Terry Stott's mind as well. They're going to have to figure out a way to get over their playoff woes from the previous seasons and find a way to take on a very tough Oklahoma City Thunder team.
Yeah, once again, it just speaks to the West. I mean, not a team you want to play in the first round.
Right.
And certainly, with Westbrook and Paul George and that crew, they're going to come out and they're going to try to punch them in the face. And so it's important. I mean, for a number of reasons, like you said, just sort of, what's happened in recent years, it's important that they come out and set the tone. It's got to be Lillard. Lillard's got to come and be the Dame Lillard that we all know he's capable of. And he needs to bring some guys along with him who can play and play at a high level.
They've won 11 of 13 down the stretch, and a bunch of that after Yusuf Nurkic went down with that horrific compound fracture against the Brooklyn Nets. Enes Kanter's become the starter. Good pickup for them, 18 and 11, 61%. Obviously, the defense is what it is on the other end. What are they going to need from him against Steven Adams, his old teammate in OKC?
Well, it's interesting. Early in the year we were talking about Nurkic and he had to be that third guy. He has to step up. He has to be a presence. Kanter feels like he's the number one guy. He has that mentality where I need touches, I can be an impact inside, give me the ball. And so his mentality, I think, is going to be is huge and important and fits and provides what this team needs. You can pencil in Lillard, you can pencil in McCollum. You need that third guy, and particularly a guy inside. A different style than he's a back to the basket pound, so they've had to adjust a little bit. But I do like what he's done, what he's been able to do. And I feel his mentality will help this team, give them a little bit of toughness and presence and interior-wise.
I agree. I think Kanter has to be hyper-aggressive. He has to go out there and establish that he's going to be somebody that can be the third option, that Portland can throw the ball to, especially inside. And we know they're going to go him at the defensive end. So the biggest thing for him is he has to make sure that his offense stands out so much that it negates the fact that defensively in the pick and roll, they're going to go at him a lot. So I think he definitely has to have a huge impact. And we know he can score the ball. He rebounds well, but he's going to have those numbers and get them against a game Steven Adams. We know Steven Adams is going to be ready to play.
Big question for the Oklahoma City Thunder is obviously the health of Paul George. Is that shoulder okay? Can he be the closer he was when Oklahoma City was at their best at times this season? More coming up here on Game Time Live, leading you to Game 1 of the Pacers-Celtics series in Boston. Kyrie Irving's first playoff game as a C. Live look at Boston, the parquet, all shiny, polished, ready to go. Pacers and Celtics, Game 1 at the top of the hour on TNT. And for a look ahead to Game 1, we're joined by Rebecca Harlow, who will be working the sidelines today on TNT. Hey, Rebecca.
Well, hey, Matt, shiny and not ready to go is Marcus Smart. This is a huge blow for the Celtics, not only because of what he brings defensively, and we all understand that, but mentally as well. The Celtics have had their ups and downs this season. That's been well documented, but when they've needed energy, when they've needed to get picked back up, when they've needed to get some wins, Marcus Smart has been that leader vocally, physically. So talking to Gordon Hayward, he says, here's what the team is going to miss without Smart.
The heart of our team for sure, and defensively, just creating chaos, not only in his individual matchup, but sliding over, taking charges, being in the right spot always. And offensively this year, he's been key for us, not only making plays, but being a knockdown shooter for us from the three-point line. So we're going to miss him a lot, and I know exactly how it feels to not be able to play in the playoffs, and we're definitely going to try to include him and still need his voice.
Now, when the Celtics announced the injury, they said Smart would be out 4 to 6 weeks. And after being here over the last couple of days, I started hearing that perhaps it would be 3. But I think that was some wishful thinking. We just caught up with Brad Stevens. He said there's no way he's coming back after 3 weeks, that this is an injury that's just really hard to quantify. But luckily for the Celtics, the rest of the group healthy, Matt. So hopefully they've got a lot of depth, and that's what they're going to have to rely on here in the first, perhaps second round.
They've certainly had that all season long. We just heard from Gordon Hayward, whose own return from injury has been scrutinized throughout the season, but he seems to have settled into a role coming off that bench. In fact, lately, 17 points a game, 62% over his last 7 games. Where is he health-wise as the postseason begins?
Yes, well, first of all, one thing you should consider with Haywood, he's been excellent on the road. That's something that the Celtics struggled with last year, so hopefully that will help out. But over the last few weeks, he's really rounded into form, but he's not quite 100% yet. However, the trust is back. I caught up with Haywood and asked him where he feels his body is with the injury.
I definitely trust my ankle. My ankle is still, sore. I mean, I still am doing the rehab exercises every day, and it's still an ongoing process. There's no doubt about that. But I think my game and the trust I have in my ankle and attacking the rim has gotten a lot better, and I'm glad that's the case for sure.
Now, Matt, to explain that a bit further, he tells me that he feels like he can absorb contact in the lane, that earlier in the season there were times where he was worried about how he was landing. He was worried about collisions with bigger, more physical players. He tells me now that he can just go out and play his game, and something to look for today, he said he's at his best when he gets to the line 5 times. That's something he's only done 15 times this season, so that kind of gives you a sense for the progression. But again, he feels like he's peaking at the right time here in Boston.
Certainly a key piece moving forward. Rebecca Harlow with us from Boston. We'll look for you on the broadcast at the top of the hour. All right. Smart out again. First round, more than likely the second round if they advance that far. In how many different ways does this affect Boston?
Well, I mean, obviously, you have a guy who understands his role, is a tough-minded defensive guy. I think one of the big moves that Brad Stevens made early in the year is inserting him in the starting lineup. They started to, at least play a little bit better and sort of have that balance in that starting unit. But, we were talking during the break in a weird kind of way, and obviously they'll miss him, for a long playoff run. But their problem has been they have so many mouths to feed, so many guys to keep happy. And so maybe this may be a good thing, at least early on in this postseason, where now you can tighten up the rotation a little bit, maybe play 8-7 guys as opposed to trying to keep all these players happy. But that may be wishful thinking too. You never know. But his toughness may or may not be needed in this series. You don't have an Oladipo out there,
right?
But as you continue to move forward, they'll definitely need Marcus Smart and his toughness and what he brings to the table.
That theory makes some sense. We've been talking about Boston and the log jam of good players they have all season long, but with Smart, you're talking about their defensive identity. Al Horford might be their most important team defender, but in terms of a guy who's going to get in your face and guard people, Marcus Smart's that guy.
Yeah, sometimes, G has a great point when he talks about addition by subtraction, but I'm not sure that it might be too much to overcome for Boston because he brings so much from the defensive end. And we've talked about role definition a lot with this team. He's not a guy where you have to define his role. He's a guy that understands that he's the defensive guy. He's a glue guy. He's a guy that's willing to do whatever the team needs. You need me to start? I'm fine with that. If you need me to come off the bench, he's fine with that also. And so you definitely miss a guy like Marcus Smart that's willing to sacrifice for the team, willing to do all the dirty work, get in there, give you he has almost like that Patrick Beverley-like presence on defense where he was willing to scrap with anybody no matter what size they are. But then on top of that, his three-point shot, his spot-up shot has gotten a lot better. So now he becomes a 3-and-D guy, and every team is looking for a guy like Marcus Smart who can defend elite players in this league, but then at the same time knock down the three-point shot. I think I agree with you. I'm not sure how much he'll be missed in this series, but if Boston is able to go on deeper, I think in the second round he'll definitely be missed.
His shooting is much better than folks may realize this season. He came into the league as a non-shooter. As a starter this year, hit nearly 38% from three-point range.
All you can ask for.
For Boston. They won't have him this series and probably the next if they advance past the Pacers. We've got more to come as we lead you up to Game 1 in Boston. One of the best offensive seasons in recent memory from James Harden. How does it translate to the postseason? We'll get into that.